Welcome back to another opportunity to learn, grow, and come back to even more to your power that exists within you. And you're not alone. There are so many people on the same journey, including yours truly. Today, I want to dive into something that has been a very large part of my own personal journey with anxiety, and that is perfectionism. And the main message here is that perfectionism, when we have this standard to constantly be perfect, we are operating from a place of lack, and therefore we're operating from a very low energy and a very low personal inner power. And if we let go of having the standard of perfection, then we can, instead of operating from a place of lack, operate from that place of power that we have within ourselves, operating from that authentic self, that higher self that exists within us. Here is why perfectionism is really operating from a place of lack. When we operate from when we operate to be perfect, have the standard of constantly needing to be perfect, not striving to be perfect, because we could shoot for the stars but land on the moon type of situation, right? That's kind of like a different way of looking at it. But when we feel like we constantly need to be perfect, we're actually reacting to some inner beliefs that may have been instilled in us at a young age, right? This is a common theme within most of my videos, because perfectionism often comes from a place of feeling as though, or that inner belief, as though we are not enough, right? We don't feel like we're enough. We don't feel like we measure up. And we have a fear of not being loved, right? One of the main, most important needs as a human is to feel like we're seen and to feel like we are loved. We're a social being. And so perfectionism, right, constantly needing to be perfect, is really operating from those beliefs within ourselves. Because if we are perfect, if we are the absolute best daughter, absolute best son, absolute best student, employee, then you can't ignore me, right? You can't ignore me. You have to give me that attention that I want. You have to give me that love. It's not real love, attention at that point, that I want, right? However, the problem here is that we're setting ourselves up for failure when we operate on the belief that if we're perfect, everybody will give me the attention and the love that I want, right? Because when we are going for being the absolute perfect son, daughter, whatever it is that you are in the circumstance that you're currently thinking about, we are setting ourselves up for failure because perfection does not actually exist, right? Like, that's the secret here. And it took me a long time to I intellectually understood it, but it took some time to actually integrate in my body and actually feel it. Perfection does not exist, and therefore, when we are actually going for that perfection and we inevitably don't measure up to being perfect, then it will reaffirm those inner beliefs we have about not measuring up or not being enough, because we didn't create the perfect project, we weren't the perfect employee, and then we start to reaffirm those inner beliefs. Because I didn't do this, now I'm not enough. Because I wasn't the perfect son, now I'm not enough. Because I didn't respond to this situation, this challenge in the most perfect way, I must not be enough. If I'm not enough, then maybe I'm actually not worthy of love. And it's maybe not consciously you're thinking, I'm not worthy of love, but subconsciously that is what's happening underneath. So operating in the idea of needing to be perfect is operating from a place of lack. And it's inevitable that we will actually fail when we have the idea that being perfect is the solution, right? But there's a way to actually work through this and let go of the perfection. And when we let go of the perfection, then we could actually start to have room and have energy and have space that was, being utilized to be perfect Now we're not focusing on that. Now that energy and that space is coming back for us to have our creativity, for us to have that clarity in the areas of life that we want to create and be the person that we want to be. Because now we are not reacting to those outdated beliefs that we picked up probably in our childhood about not being enough. We're not reacting to that anymore. Now, instead, we are being proactive, right? We're creating our life instead of reacting to it. And so when those feelings of lack or those feelings of not being enough, they come up in our body, right? We're all tense. We could witness it. We could hold space for it, see it, and feel it. And because there's some objectivity and we're witnessing it, instead of getting caught up in it and becoming it, we could witness it and we could say, okay, like I see this old feeling, this old belief coming up, and I know that I am enough. I know that I measure up, because that is something that we determine in ourselves. And it takes time to actually unlearn and have this ability. But once we are able to witness it and not get caught up in it and identified with it, then we could be proactive and we could start to create our response to those feelings when they come up. So instead of being shackled to those outdated beliefs, now we've undone the shackles, and now we can create life the way that we want to. We can create our own standards of how we want to show up, what we want to create, how we want to create it, instead of operating from the belief that we need to create something a specific way in order to feel love, right? We will determine that within ourselves. This power comes from within ourselves. And one of the tools that I have utilized to really find some growth and progress when it comes to anxiety in general and these outdated beliefs and perfectionism is cognitive behavioral therapy, right? Because cognitive behavioral therapy, we're becoming aware of the triggers when they happen, those outdated beliefs when they happen. We're changing our state so that we can have clarity on what we're feeling and experiencing. And then we're recognizing, oh, I know where this outdated belief comes from. I'm not getting caught up in it. I'm feeling it. I'm seeing it, but I'm not reacting to it. And then the third step of cognitive behavioral therapy is, again, choosing that path that we want to go on, realigning with our own values, with our own power, and where we want to show up and how we want to show up, right? And that is coming back to that power that we have within ourselves, coming back to that authentic self, realigning with that core of just pure light and energy and clarity and creativity that exists within you. And we all have it. It's just a matter of getting through the clouds to actually see that there's a sun behind the clouds. And you, my friend, have that sun within you, even if right now you're caught up in identifying with some of those outdated beliefs that are no longer serving you, right? And these outdated beliefs that are showing up in our lives, like within perfectionism, again, I've mentioned this in previous videos, but they're coming from, our parental figures, our older brothers, older sisters, family, school. When we were very, very young and we were vulnerable, we didn't really get to choose how we were going to look at the world. We were constantly just reacting and trying to understand what was happening around us. So now we have the ability to unlearn those things and come back to our power. And when you let go of that perfectionism and you walk in those shoes that you want to walk in and that power that you have that is just within here, just needs to be tapped into, you become so electric, much more confident, much more clear, much more creative. And it's, instead of a negative feedback loop, it's an upward loop. So you're spiraling upwards, you're growing upwards. And that is power in itself, right? Coming back to our power, creating even more power, and having a high level of energy. If this was valuable to you, as always, please feel free to let me know or ask me questions so that we can have a conversation about how to let go of perfectionism and how to step into our extreme power that we have within ourselves. And as always, if you really enjoyed it, and only if you really enjoyed it, a like or a subscription goes a really long way. And I urge you guys also to share this with other people that you think could benefit from these messages, because as we share it with more people, we start to add to the community of, people who are growing. And we're creating slowly but surely this collective society where growth and happiness and peace is much more common. I look forward to reading your comments, having a conversation, answering questions, and seeing you in the next video. Let's step into our power, let go of perfection, and create our lives instead of reacting to them. Much love.